A black firefighter rescues a racist white woman from burning building after she accuses him of stealing her jewelry. The alarm blared through the firehouse, a shrill cry that cut through the early morning haze. Elijah Brooks jolted upright, adrenaline surging through his veins as he raced to pull on his gear. The familiar scent of smoke and the weight of responsibility filled him with a sense of urgency. Today was no different than any other day. He was a firefighter, and every call could be the one that changed everything. "Structure fire at the Riverview Apartments." The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio, urgency lacing each word. "Multiple calls reporting people trapped on the upper floors." Elijah's heart raced as he buckled his helmet. His team moved with practiced precision, each member aware of their role. He glanced at his partner, Ryan, a sturdy man with a calming demeanor that always balanced Elijah's intensity. "Let's move," Ryan shouted, and they sprinted toward the fire truck, the sound of their footsteps mingling with the growing roar of sirens. The truck lurched into motion, the streets flashing by as the city awoke to the reality of the raging fire engulfing the apartment building. Elijah focused on the task at hand, pushing aside the nagging thoughts of what awaited them. He had been a firefighter for nearly a decade, yet every emergency brought a fresh wave of anxiety. As they pulled up to the scene, the sight was overwhelming. Flames licked the sides of the building, casting a hellish glow against the darkening sky. Black smoke billowed upwards, obscuring the early morning light. Elijah's stomach churned. Lives were at stake, and he needed to focus. "Okay, team," their captain, Chief Edwards, barked orders. "We're going in. Elijah, Ryan, you're with me. We'll take the stairs to the 4th floor. The rest of you, set up the hoses and prepare for rescue efforts." Elijah nodded, heart pounding as he and Ryan followed Chief Edwards toward the building. The heat radiated from the structure, engulfing them in an oppressive wave as they crossed the threshold. Inside, the air was thick with smoke, and visibility dropped to mere inches. Elijah reached for his flashlight, cutting through the darkness, illuminating the chaos around them. "Stay close," Elijah shouted, his voice barely audible over the crackling flames. They pressed forward, navigating the narrow halls, their boots crunching on debris. The sounds of people crying out echoed through the corridors, a haunting reminder of the lives trapped within these walls. "Help! Somebody help!" A voice pierced through the cacophony. It was a woman's voice, frantic and desperate. Elijah's heart raced. They needed to find her. "Over here!" Elijah yelled, leading the way towards the sound. Flames danced along the walls, casting ominous shadows. He could feel the heat intensifying, sweat dripping down his back as he pushed forward, his instincts kicking into high gear. They reached a door, partially ajar, smoke spilling out like a living thing. Elijah glanced at Ryan and Chief Edwards, who nodded in silent agreement. Together, they burst through the door, and the sight that greeted them was terrifying. A woman, disheveled and wide-eyed, was backed into a corner, her expensive belongings scattered around her. The flames crackled menacingly behind her, a reminder that time was running out. "Ma'am, we're here to help," Elijah called, stepping forward. "You need to come with us." The woman's gaze flickered between the two firefighters, and something in her expression shifted. "Wait, no, my jewelry! I can't leave without it." "Ma'am, we have to go. There's no time," Ryan urged, stepping closer to her. But she shook her head vehemently. "No, you don't understand. It's worth thousands. I need it." Her voice was shrill, laced with panic. "Your life is worth more than any jewelry," Elijah insisted, trying to remain calm. He could see the flames creeping closer, the heat singeing his skin. They had to act fast. "Please," she cried, her voice breaking. "I can't lose it." Elijah took a deep breath, pushing his frustration aside. "We'll come back for it, I promise. But right now, you need to trust us." With a shaky nod, she reached out, her hands trembling as Elijah pulled her to her feet. "Let's go," he shouted, leading her back towards the door. Ryan fell in step behind them as they maneuvered through the smoke-filled hallway, the heat intensifying with every second. Finally, they burst through the front door into the cool night air. The relief washed over Elijah like a wave, but it was short-lived. The woman's expression changed from fear to fury as she scanned her surroundings. "What happened to my jewelry?" she demanded, her voice rising in pitch. "Ma'am, we need to get you out of here," Ryan urged, stepping forward. "Don't you dare touch me," she spat, stepping back and glaring at Elijah. You You took it, didn't you? Elijah froze, confusion washing over him. What? No, I saved your life. You're a thief, she shouted, her voice carrying across the gathering crowd. You stole from me. Elijah's heart sank. The chaos of the rescue faded into the background as the world narrowed to Linda's accusing gaze. He could feel the heat of the fire still raging behind him, but it paled in comparison to the blaze igniting within him. Ma'am, I didn't take anything, Elijah said, struggling to keep his voice steady. We were focused on getting you out. I didn't even see any jewelry. I had a diamond bracelet. It's worth thousands, she insisted, her words dripping with disdain. And I bet you're just another lowlife who thinks he can get away with it. Enough, Chief Edwards barked, stepping in between them. This is not the time for accusations. We just saved your life. Elijah felt a mix of anger and disbelief, his hands clenching into fists. How could she blame him for something that happened in the chaos? The flames were still roaring behind them, but the fight within him was far more intense. Let's get you out of here, Chief Edwards said firmly, guiding Linda away from the scene. Elijah stood frozen for a moment, watching as she continued to cast glances back at him, her expression one of suspicion and contempt. As the fire engines roared to life, Elijah felt the weight of her words settle over him like a shroud. He had dedicated his life to saving people, risking everything to protect others. And yet here he was, being accused of theft by the very person he had saved. The irony stung like a bitter wound. Let's regroup, Ryan said, placing a hand on Elijah's shoulder. We need to get back in there and finish the job. But as they returned to the scene, Elijah's mind was elsewhere. He could hear the murmurs of the crowd, the whispers spreading like wildfire. Did you see that? A black firefighter stealing from a white woman? The words cut deep, and for the first time, he felt the weight of the community's gaze upon him, judging and scrutinizing. The fire continued to rage as they fought to control the blaze, but Elijah's focus had shifted. He was no longer just fighting flames. He was battling the insidious shadows of prejudice and hatred that threatened to engulf him. Hours passed, and as the last of the flames were extinguished, Elijah stood outside the building, watching as the fire department began their investigation. He was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, but the battle was far from over. Hey, Elijah, Chief Edwards called, his voice cutting through the haze of exhaustion. We need to talk about what happened with that woman. Elijah nodded, dread settling in his stomach. The chief's expression was serious, and Elijah knew this was just the beginning of a long day filled with scrutiny and questioning. Let's go over your statement, Edwards said, motioning for Elijah to follow him. As they walked away from the chaos, Elijah felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. This was more than just a rescue gone wrong. It was an indictment of who he was, and it threatened to unravel everything he had worked for. Tell me what happened inside, Chief Edwards prompted as they stepped into a quieter corner near the command center, away from the prying eyes of the crowd. Elijah recounted the events of the rescue, detailing how he found Linda, how she had refused to leave without her jewelry, and how they had finally escaped together. He could see the wheels turning in the chief's head, the concern etched across his face. Look, Elijah, Chief Edwards finally said, his voice steady but concerned. I know you did everything right, but the way she's framing this, her accusations, the way people are talking, it's going to be a problem. Problem? Elijah echoed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. She's the one who accused me of stealing. I saved her life. Yeah, I know that, the chief replied, rubbing the back of his neck. But you know how these things go. The media will latch on to this. We need to get ahead of it. I'll back you up, but we need to have a plan. Elijah felt a knot tighten in his stomach. A plan? What does that even look like? I didn't do anything wrong. I understand, Chief Edwards said, continuing with a firm yet empathetic tone. But it's not about what you did or didn't do. It's about perception. We need to ensure that the narrative doesn't spiral out of control. Elijah stared at the ground, his thoughts racing. How many times had he fought against the narrative that painted him and others like him as less than? So what do you suggest? Should I just let her walk all over me? Let her ruin my reputation because she thinks I'm a thief? Not at all, Chief Edwards replied. But I think it's wise to keep your head down for now. Let's collect evidence, talk to the other witnesses. If we can put together a solid account of what happened, that'll support your side of the story. Elijah sighed, the weight of the world settling heavily on his shoulders. I just don't understand how she can turn this around on me when I was the one who risked my life to save her. I know, and it's infuriating, the chief said, his voice softening. But this isn't just about you. It's about the department and the community. I'm going to speak with the media, but I want you to focus on your work. Don't let this distract you. Focus on my work? Elijah echoed, incredulous. How am I supposed to do that when I'm being accused of theft? By remembering why you became a firefighter in the first place, Chief Edwards said, placing a reassuring hand on Elijah's shoulder. You do this to help people, Elijah. Don't let one person's ignorance take that away from you. You're better than that. Elijah nodded slowly, though the fire of frustration still simmered within him. He appreciated the chief's support, but it felt like a Band-Aid on a much deeper wound. I just hope the truth comes out. Me too, Chief Edwards said, glancing back towards the building. But right now, we have to deal with the aftermath. Let's get back to it. As they returned to the scene, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the pavement. The fire department was wrapping up, but the tension in the air was palpable. Firefighters exchanged glances, some looking at Elijah with sympathy, while others appeared skeptical, clearly influenced by the rumors circulating about Linda's accusations. Elijah rejoined Ryan, who was engaged in conversation with another firefighter. How's it going? Ryan asked, noticing Elijah's somber expression. Just peachy, Elijah replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Linda's got the whole world convinced I'm a thief. Damn, Ryan muttered, shaking his head. That's messed up. You saved her life. Tell me about it, Elijah said, running a hand through his hair, slick with sweat and frustration. But it doesn't matter what I did. All that matters is what she says. Let's just focus on the job, Ryan suggested. We still have work to do here. Elijah nodded, but his heart wasn't in it. They continued to clean up the scene, dousing hot spots and securing the area. With each passing moment, Elijah found it increasingly difficult to shake the feeling of injustice that had settled over him. He had spent years fighting fires and saving lives, only to be vilified by a woman who didn't even know his name. As night fell, the last embers of the fire flickered out, and the smell of charred wood and smoke hung heavy in the air. The firefighters began to gather for a debriefing, and Elijah felt a knot form in his stomach again. He took his place among his colleagues, the weight of their gazes pressing down on him. All right, team, Chief Edwards began, his voice steady. Today was rough, but we did what we came here to do. Lives were saved, and that's what matters. Keep in mind, though, that we need to stay united as a department. Any rumors or negative press could affect us all, so let's support each other through this. Elijah's heart sank further. He felt as though he were standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering dangerously close to falling into the abyss of judgment and prejudice. The chief continued, discussing the logistics of the incident and the potential for community outreach to mend any rifts caused by the day's events. Once the debriefing concluded, Elijah stepped outside to get some fresh air. The cool night breeze brushed against his face, but it offered little comfort. He leaned against the fire truck, staring up at the stars that twinkled above, feeling small and insignificant in a world that seemed so unjust. Hey, Ryan said softly, stepping outside to join him. You okay? Elijah shrugged, his emotions a tangled mess. I don't know, man. I feel like I'm drowning in this. I get it, Ryan replied, crossing his arms. It's not fair, and it sucks, but you've got to remember who you are. You're a damn good firefighter, and no one can take that away from you. Except maybe Linda, Elijah muttered, bitterness creeping into his voice. Forget her, Ryan said, his tone firm. You saved her life today. That's what matters. You've got people who care about you, who know the truth. Don't let one person's ignorance define you. Elijah sighed, grateful for Ryan's support, but still grappling with the weight of the day. I just wish it were that simple. Maybe it can be, Ryan replied. You've got a lot of love in this department. We've got your back. Just focus on the work, and this will blow over. You'll see. Yeah, maybe you're right, Elijah said, forcing a smile. I just hope it doesn't take too long. As the night went on, Elijah returned to the firehouse, the chatter of his colleagues a comforting background noise. He threw himself into the work, helping to clean the equipment and get everything back in order. But no matter how hard he tried to focus, the events of the day loomed large in his mind. Finally, as the clock ticked past midnight, exhaustion washed over him. He sank down onto a bench in the common area, rubbing his eyes. Just as he began to drift off, the door swung open, and in walked Chief Edwards, looking more serious than usual. "Elijah," the chief said, his tone commanding attention, "I need to talk to you about Linda's accusations." Elijah's heart sank. "What now?" "We're going to need to address this publicly," Chief Edwards said, taking a seat across from Elijah. "The media is already sniffing around, and I want to control the narrative before it spirals out of control." "Address it how?" Elijah asked, his voice tinged with anxiety. "I didn't do anything wrong." "I know that," the chief replied, "but we need to be proactive. I'm thinking of holding a press conference. Clear the air, set the record straight." Elijah felt a surge of anger. "So I'm supposed to stand in front of a bunch of reporters and defend myself against a lie?" "It's not just about you," Chief Edwards said. "It's about the integrity of the department. If we don't act, it could hurt us all. We'll present the facts, and I'll be right there with you." Elijah nodded slowly, understanding the necessity, but feeling the weight of it pressing down on him. "When are we doing this?" "I'd like to schedule it for tomorrow morning," Chief Edwards said. "We'll gather the facts, the witnesses, and present a united front. I want you to be prepared, Elijah. I know this is tough, but you're stronger than you think." "Right," Elijah said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do it." "Good, we'll get through this," Chief Edwards assured him, standing up. "Get some rest tonight. You've earned it." As the chief left, Elijah felt a mix of dread and resolve. He would face the media, face the prejudices that plagued him, and he would not back down. He couldn't allow Linda's accusations to define him. He would fight for his integrity, for the truth, and for every firefighter who had ever faced a similar battle. Later that night, as he lay in his bunk, Elijah tried to quiet his racing thoughts. He thought about his family, his community, and the countless lives he had touched as a firefighter. He thought about the young recruits he mentored, how he wanted to inspire them to rise above the systemic issues they faced. He would not let this moment shatter that dream. With a newfound determination, Elijah closed his eyes, envisioning a future where he stood tall and proud, unyielding in the face of adversity. Tomorrow would be a new day, and he would show the world who he truly was. As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Elijah felt a flicker of hope stirring within him. He was determined to confront the challenges ahead and reclaim his narrative. He would not let Linda's accusations define him. The fight for his integrity and the truth began now. Elijah woke early the next morning, the weight of the day ahead pressing down on him like a heavy blanket. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes and took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. Today, he would face the media and the community, and he had no intention of backing down. After a quick shower and a strong cup of coffee, Elijah dressed in his uniform, the fabric a comforting reminder of his purpose. He looked in the mirror, searching for confidence within himself. "You've got this," he whispered, trying to convince the reflection staring back at him. The firehouse buzzed with activity as his colleagues prepared for the press conference. Elijah felt the weight of their gazes, some supportive, others filled with doubt. He could sense the tension in the air, as if everyone were holding their breath, waiting for the storm to break. "Hey," Ryan said, approaching Elijah with a reassuring smile. "You ready for this?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Elijah replied, forcing a smile in return. "I just wish it didn't have to come to this." "Me too," Ryan said, crossing his arms. "But you're going to show them the truth. You're not alone in this." Elijah nodded, grateful for Ryan's unwavering support. They made their way to the conference room, where Chief Edwards was already setting up for the press conference. A podium stood at the front of the room, flanked by cameras and reporters eager to capture every moment. "All right, team," Chief Edwards said, addressing the firefighters gathered in the room. "Today we're going to set the record straight. Elijah will speak on behalf of the department, and I'll be right by his side. Remember, we're here to support him." Elijah took a deep breath, his stomach churning as he stepped up to the podium. The bright lights of the cameras felt blinding, but he squared his shoulders, determined to rise above the scrutiny. He glanced at the audience, spotting familiar faces among the crowd, his fellow firefighters, friends, community members. They were here for him, and that thought gave him strength. "Thank you all for coming. Elijah began, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. I want to address the events that took place yesterday during the fire at the Riverview Apartments. While I was performing my duty as a firefighter, I saved a woman's life. Unfortunately, that woman, Linda Johnson, has made serious accusations against me. He paused, taking a deep breath. I did not steal from her. My only objective was to ensure her safety and the safety of those trapped inside that building. I understand that emotions were high during the chaos, but I refuse to let these accusations tarnish my integrity or the work that we do as firefighters. A murmur rippled through the audience, and Elijah could see some nodding in agreement. It was a small comfort, but it fueled his resolve to continue. As a firefighter, I dedicate my life to protecting others, regardless of their background. I will not let ignorance and prejudice dictate my worth. Elijah felt the weight of the moment settle over him, and he glanced at Chief Edwards, who offered an encouraging nod. I have always believed in the importance of community, and I know that together we can overcome these challenges. I urge everyone to look beyond the surface and recognize our shared humanity. He took a moment to scan the room, meeting the eyes of his colleagues. This department stands united, and we will support each other through adversity. I'm proud to serve alongside these brave men and women, and I hope we can all work towards a better understanding of one another. As Elijah concluded his statement, he felt a mixture of relief and anxiety wash over him. The cameras clicked, and the reporters scribbled notes, but he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had spoken his truth, and now it was out there for the world to see. Chief Edwards stepped up beside him, taking over the podium. Thank you, Elijah. As you all know, the fire department is committed to transparency and accountability. We will be conducting a thorough investigation into the incident, and we welcome any witnesses to come forward with information. After a few more questions from the press, the conference wrapped up, and Elijah stepped away from the podium, his heart racing. As the reporters dispersed, he felt a sense of relief wash over him, but it was quickly overshadowed by the uncertainty of what would come next. Nice job, man, Ryan said, clapping Elijah on the back. You handled that like a pro. Thanks, Elijah replied, trying to shake off the tension. Now we just have to see how this plays out. As they returned to the firehouse, Elijah's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out to see a flood of notifications from social media. He hesitated before opening the app, anxiety creeping in as he wondered what people were saying. The comments were mixed. Some praised his bravery, while others echoed Linda's accusations, calling him a thief and a fraud. Elijah felt a knot form in his stomach. No matter how many positive comments he read, the negative ones stung, each word a reminder of the prejudice he faced. Don't let it get to you, Ryan said, noticing Elijah's expression. You know the truth, and that's what matters. Easier said than done, Elijah muttered as he scrolled through the comments. It's just frustrating. I know, but you can't let their ignorance define you, Ryan said firmly. You've got a lot of support in this department and the community. Focus on the people who matter. Elijah nodded, but the words felt hollow. He wanted to believe them, but the reality of the situation pressed heavily on his chest. He had always fought against the stereotypes and biases that plagued him, and now he felt as though he were standing on a precipice, teetering dangerously close to falling into despair. As the day wore on, Elijah immersed himself in work, trying to distract himself from the turmoil swirling in his mind. He joined his colleagues in training drills, working through the motions of firefighting as he focused on the task at hand. The physical activity helped clear his head, but the image of Linda's accusing glare haunted him. Later that afternoon, as Elijah was washing the fire truck, he noticed a familiar face walking towards him. It was Marcus, a fellow firefighter who had worked with him for years, a man respected for his unwavering support and camaraderie. Hey, Elijah, Marcus said, a concerned look on his face. I just wanted to check in on you after everything that happened. Thanks, Marcus, Elijah replied, grateful for the gesture. It's been a rough day. I can only imagine. I heard about the press conference. You did great, man, Marcus said, clapping Elijah on the shoulder. Don't let those voices get to you. The community knows who you are. Appreciate it, Elijah said, forcing a smile. But it's tough, you know. I just want to do my job and help people. Exactly, Marcus said, his tone resolute. And you will. You've been a role model for so many of us. Don't lose sight of that. Elijah felt a flicker of warmth at Marcus's words. The firehouse felt like a family, and the support from his colleagues meant more than he could express. Thanks, Marcus. I'll keep that in mind. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Elijah took a moment to step outside for some fresh air. He leaned against the fire truck, staring up at the stars that were beginning to peek through the twilight. It was a small comfort, a reminder that despite the chaos of the day, there was still beauty in the world. Suddenly his phone buzzed again, pulling him from his thoughts. This time it was a message from his sister, Tasha. Tasha, hey, I heard about the situation. Just know I believe in you. Don't let them get you down. Elijah smiled at her words, feeling a surge of gratitude for his family. He quickly typed a response. Elijah, thanks, Tasha. I'm trying to stay strong. Love you. As he put his phone away, he felt a renewed sense of determination. He would not let this situation define him. He would continue to fight for what was right, for the people who depended on him, and for the truth. The following days were a whirlwind. The media coverage continued, with mixed responses from the community. Some rallied around Elijah, voicing their support, while others clung to Linda's narrative, fueling the flames of prejudice. It felt as if the world were watching him, scrutinizing his every move. Elijah attended meetings with Chief Edwards, strategizing on how to address the ongoing situation. They reviewed statements, gathered evidence, and discussed community outreach efforts to mend any rifts that had formed. The department was mobilizing to support him, but the pressure weighed heavily on Elijah's shoulders. One evening, as he wrapped up a long shift, he received a call from Chief Edwards. Elijah, I need one evening. As he wrapped up a long shift, he received a call from Chief Edwards. Elijah, I need you to come to the station. We've got some developments regarding Linda's accusations. Elijah's heart raced as he grabbed his gear and headed back to the station. He hoped for answers, but feared the worst. As he walked through the familiar halls of the firehouse, the weight of uncertainty pressed down on him. What new twist awaited him in this already tumultuous situation? Elijah arrived at the firehouse and found Chief Edwards waiting for him in the conference room, a stack of papers spread out before him. The atmosphere felt tense, charged with anticipation. Thanks for coming in, the chief said, gesturing for Elijah to take a seat. We've been reviewing the incident reports and witness statements. There's been some chatter from the community, and I want to make sure you're aware of it. Elijah sat down, feeling a knot form in his stomach. What did they say? Some witnesses have come forward, and we've managed to track down a few people who were at the scene, Chief Edwards explained. They're corroborating your story, saying that you did everything possible to get Linda out safely. Elijah felt a flicker of hope, but remained cautious. That's good, right? So why does it feel like the walls are closing in? Because, Chief Edwards continued, Linda is doubling down on her accusations. She's now claiming that not only did you steal her jewelry, but that you also mishandled her during the rescue, saying that you put her life in danger. What? That's absurd, Elijah exclaimed, disbelief washing over him. I risked my life to get her out of there. How can she twist the truth like that? I know it sounds unbelievable, the chief replied, his expression sympathetic. But it's out there now and it's gaining traction. We need to prepare for the worst. The media will latch on to this story and it could affect the department as a whole. Elijah leaned back in his chair, frustration boiling within him. So what do we do? Just sit back and let her destroy everything I've worked for? No, Chief Edwards said firmly. We're going to fight back. I've scheduled a meeting with the city council to discuss this. We're going to gather all the evidence we can, and I want you to be there. We need to present a united front. Elijah nodded, trying to absorb the information. When is this meeting? Tomorrow morning. I know it's short notice, but we need to act fast, the chief said. I want you to prepare a statement. You'll need to express your side clearly and assertively. We can't let her narrative dictate the conversation. As Elijah left the conference room, he felt a mix of anxiety and determination. He had faced numerous challenges in his career, but this felt different. This wasn't just about him, it was about the integrity of the entire fire department. He would not allow one person's prejudice to undermine everything he had fought for. That night, Elijah sat at his kitchen table, drafting his statement. He poured his heart into the words, recounting the events of the day, emphasizing his commitment to public service, and highlighting the importance of unity in the face of adversity. As he wrote, the emotions surged within him, anger, frustration, but also a sense of purpose. The following morning, Elijah arrived at the city council meeting with a knot in his stomach. The room buzzed with chatter, and he could see reporters setting up cameras in the back. He glanced around, spotting Chief Edwards and several other firefighters who had come to show their support. As the meeting commenced, the council members took their seats, and the atmosphere shifted from casual conversation to serious discourse. Chief Edwards stood up to speak first, outlining the fire department's commitment to transparency and accountability. He spoke about the rescue operation and the dedication of the firefighters who risk their lives daily. Elijah watched as the council members listened attentively, but he knew that Linda's accusations loomed large in the background. Finally, it was his turn to speak. As he approached the podium, he felt the weight of the room bearing down on him. "Good morning," he began, his voice steady despite the nerves. "My name is Elijah Brooks, and I am a firefighter with the city's fire department. Yesterday, I stood before you as a person dedicated to serving this community, and today I stand here to defend my integrity and the truth." He recounted the events of the rescue, highlighting the urgency of the situation and the decisions he had to make. "When I entered that building, my only thought was to save a life. I did not take anything from Ms. Johnson, nor did I endanger her. I was focused on getting her out safely, and that is what I did." Elijah could see some council members nodding in agreement, but the murmurs of skepticism still lingered in the air. He pressed on, determined to convey the importance of his message. "As firefighters, we face danger every day. We dedicate our lives to protecting others, regardless of their background. I refuse to let prejudice tarnish the work we do." As he finished his statement, a reporter raised a hand, eager to ask a question. "Mr. Brooks, how do you respond to Ms. Johnson's allegations that you stole her jewelry during the rescue?" Elijah took a deep breath, steeling himself. "I respond by saying that I did not steal anything. I did not even see her jewelry during the chaos of the rescue. My focus was on her safety. I urge everyone to consider the circumstances and not jump to conclusions based on fear or prejudice." The atmosphere in the room shifted slightly, and Elijah could sense a growing support from some of the council members. He felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, but he knew they weren't out of the woods yet. Another council member, a stern-looking woman with glasses, spoke up. "Mr. Brooks, how do you believe your department can address the community's concerns about this incident?" Elijah seized the opportunity. "We must engage with the community directly. We need to foster understanding and build relationships. It's essential that we listen to their concerns and work together to overcome the prejudices that exist. We can't afford to let this incident divide us." The meeting continued, and as Elijah spoke, he felt the weight of his words resonating with the audience. He was fighting not just for his own reputation, but for the values that he believed in, the values of compassion, integrity, and unity. After the meeting concluded, Elijah stepped away from the podium, his heart racing. He had poured his heart into his speech, and he felt a sense of relief wash over him. The support from his colleagues and the community was palpable, and he knew that they were fighting this battle together. As he walked out of the building, he spotted Linda standing at the edge of the crowd, flanked by reporters. She wore an expression of defiance, her arms crossed as she listened to the conversation unfold. Elijah felt a surge of anger at the sight of her, but he reminded himself to stay focused on the bigger picture. "Hey, great job in there," Ryan said, catching up with Elijah. "You really nailed it." "Thanks," Elijah replied, though the unease still churned within him. "We're not done yet, though." "No, but we're making progress," Ryan said, his tone optimistic. "We'll keep pushing for the truth, and eventually it will come out." As they walked towards the firehouse, a sense of camaraderie surrounded them. Elijah felt supported, but the battle was far from over. He knew that Linda would not back down easily, and he had to remain vigilant. Days passed, and the tension in the community continued to simmer. Elijah stayed focused on his work, pouring his energy into firefighting and mentoring the younger recruits. He couldn't shake the feeling that Linda's accusations hung over him like a dark cloud, but he refused to let it consume him. Then one evening, as Elijah was preparing to leave the firehouse after a long shift, he received a call from Chief Edwards. "Elijah, we've got a situation. I need you to come to the station." Elijah's heart raced as he hurried back to the firehouse. What now, he wondered, anxiety creeping in. He found the chief waiting for him, his expression grave. "We've received reports that Linda is escalating her accusations," Chief Edwards said, his voice low. "She's gone to the media again, claiming that you're trying to cover up what really happened." "What?" Elijah exclaimed, disbelief and anger surging through him. "I'm not covering up anything. I saved her life." "I know, Bapta," the chief replied, his voice firm, "but she's painting a narrative that suggests otherwise. We need to prepare for the worst. I want you to stay close to the department and be ready for anything. We may need to take legal action if this continues." Elijah felt a mix of frustration and helplessness. He had fought so hard to tell the truth and defend his integrity, and yet it felt like it was slipping away. "What do I do?" he asked, his voice tinged with desperation. "We'll gather evidence, talk to witnesses, and ensure that we have a solid defense," Chief Edwards said. "But I need you to remain strong. You can't let this break you." As Elijah left the station that night, he felt Part 3, No Way Out, conclusion. As Elijah left the station that night, he felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. He had fought hard to maintain his integrity and voice the truth, but now it felt as though the ground beneath him was shifting once again. He stepped into his car, his mind racing with thoughts of the day ahead. He would not let this situation define him. He would fight for every ounce of respect and dignity he had. The following morning, Elijah woke to the familiar sound of his alarm clock, but the dread that filled him was anything but familiar. He had spent the night tossing and turning, the shadows of doubt creeping in as he pondered the battle ahead. Today, another press conference awaited him, and he could feel the tension in the air. As he dressed, he replayed the words he had prepared in his mind, but they felt hollow against the backdrop of Linda's accusations. Would anyone truly believe him? Would the truth finally shine through the haze of ignorance and prejudice? When he arrived at the firehouse, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Colleagues gathered, exchanging whispers and glances. Elijah spotted Ryan, who approached him with a reassuring smile. "You ready for this, man?" "I guess so," Elijah replied, though his stomach churned with anxiety. "I just hope it goes better than last time." "It will," Ryan insisted. "You've got us behind you. We're all in this together." As they prepared for the press conference, Elijah felt a sense of solidarity from his fellow firefighters. They had rallied around him, and that support became a lifeline in these tumultuous times. Still, the moment he stepped in front of the cameras, the pressure surged back. Chief Edwards opened the conference, reiterating the fire department's commitment to transparency and the importance of community trust. Then he handed the floor over to Elijah, who stepped forward to address the crowd once more. "Thank you all for being here today," Elijah began, his heart pounding in his chest. "I stand before you again to defend my integrity and the truth regarding the events that took place during the fire at the Riverview Apartments." He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I want to start by saying that I did not steal anything from Ms. Johnson. My focus was solely on ensuring her safety and the safety of others trapped inside that burning building. The allegations against me are unfounded and deeply hurtful." As he spoke, he could see the eyes of the reporters fixed on him, some scribbling notes while others recorded every word. He pressed on, determined to convey his passion. "I dedicated my life to serving this community, and I refuse to let prejudice dictate my worth. I urge everyone to look beyond the surface, to recognize our shared humanity and the value of integrity in our lives." A reporter raised a hand and Elijah braced himself for the questions. "Mr. Brooks, how do you respond to Ms. Johnson's claims that you intentionally endangered her life during the rescue?" Elijah met the reporter's gaze, feeling the weight of the question. "I respond by stating that my only intention was to save her life. The chaos of a burning building is overwhelming, and I did everything in my power to act swiftly and safely. I would never put someone in harm's way intentionally." Another reporter chimed in, "What do you say to those who believe that your actions were motivated by a desire to steal from her?" Elijah felt anger bubbling beneath the surface, but he held his composure. "I think it's important to acknowledge that prejudice exists in our society. It's easy to believe the worst in someone when we don't understand their journey. I stand here as a firefighter who has faced adversity throughout my career, and I refuse to let this moment define who I am." As he finished his statement, Elijah felt the surge of support from his colleagues behind him. The room buzzed with energy, and for the first time in days, he felt a flicker of hope. He had spoken his truth, and he would continue to fight for it. The conference wrapped up, and as the reporters began to disperse, Elijah felt a sense of relief wash over him. He had faced the scrutiny head-on, and while the battle was far from over, he had taken a significant step in reclaiming his narrative. After the conference, Elijah returned to the firehouse, his colleagues congratulating him on his performance. They gathered in the common area, sharing stories and laughter, and for a moment the weight of the previous days lifted. But as they celebrated, Elijah's phone buzzed with a notification. He glanced down to see a message from Tasha. "Tasha, I saw the conference. You were amazing. Just remember, the truth always comes out in the end." Elijah smiled at her words, feeling a surge of gratitude for his family's support. He quickly replied, "Elijah, thanks, Tasha. I'm trying to stay strong. Love you." Later that evening, as the sun set and cast a warm glow over the firehouse, Elijah found himself sitting alone on the porch, lost in thought. The events of the past week had taken a toll on him, and he needed a moment of solitude to reflect. As he gazed out at the city skyline, memories flooded back. His childhood, his journey to becoming a firefighter, the struggles he had faced along the way. He thought about the young recruits he mentored, the future he wanted for them, and how he longed to inspire them to rise above the challenges they would undoubtedly face. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps approached, breaking him from his reverie. It was Ryan, who took a seat beside him. "You all right, man?" "Yeah, just thinking," Elijah replied, grateful for the company. "About everything that's happened." "It's been a rough ride," Ryan said, his tone understanding. "But you're handling it like a champ. Just remember, you have a whole department behind you." "I know," Elijah said, his voice filled with appreciation. "But it's hard not to feel overwhelmed. I just want to do my job and help people. I don't want this to define me." "It won't," Ryan reassured him. "You've already shown everyone who you are. You're a hero. You saved lives, and that's what matters." As the night wore on, Elijah felt a sense of peace settle over him. The support from his colleagues and the community gave him strength. He realized that he was not alone in this fight. He had people who believed in him. Days turned into weeks, and the media frenzy surrounding Linda's accusations began to subside. With each passing day, the truth emerged more clearly, and the community began to rally around Elijah. Social media posts shifted from skepticism to support, and he felt the tide turning. Then, one evening, as Elijah was wrapping up a shift, he received news that Linda had made a public statement retracting her accusations. She claimed to have been overwhelmed during the incident and recognized that her words had been fueled by fear and prejudice. Elijah felt a rush of relief wash over him, but he also knew that the damage had been done. "Did you hear?" Ryan said, bursting into the room, a wide grin on his face. "Linda retracted her statement." Elijah smiled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "Yeah, I just heard. It's a relief, but it doesn't change what happened." "True," Ryan said, nodding, "but it's a step in the right direction. You deserve to have your name cleared." Elijah appreciated Ryan's unwavering support, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the scars of this experience would linger. He had fought against prejudice and ignorance, but he knew that the battle was far from over. As the weeks went on, the fire department organized a community outreach event to foster understanding and promote unity. Elijah was invited to speak, and he felt a sense of purpose as he prepared to address the crowd. On the day of the event, the atmosphere was electric. Community members gathered in the park, eager to engage in conversation and learn more about the fire department's role in the community. Elijah stood before the crowd, his heart racing with anticipation. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steady. "Today, we're here to foster understanding and build connections. I want to share my journey as a firefighter and the importance of unity in our community." As he spoke, Elijah shared his experiences, the challenges he had faced, and the love he held for his job. He encouraged the community to look beyond stereotypes and recognize the humanity in one another. "Together, we can create a better future," Elijah said, his passion igniting the crowd. "We are all part of this community, and it's our responsibility to lift each other up." The crowd erupted in applause, and Elijah felt a surge of hope wash over him. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of closure. The support from the community was overwhelming, and he knew that they were all in this together. As the event concluded, Elijah was approached by several community members who expressed their gratitude for his bravery and dedication. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that he had made a difference. In the following weeks, as the fire department continued to engage with the community, Elijah found a new sense of belonging. He became an advocate for change, working to ensure that future generations would not face the same prejudices he had encountered. One evening, as he sat in the firehouse with his colleagues, Elijah reflected on the journey he had taken. Elijah looked around the firehouse, surrounded by colleagues who had become family. He realized that through adversity, he had forged stronger connections within the community and the fire department. The scars of the past would fade, but the lessons learned would remain with him forever. As he moved forward, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. You've made it to the end. If you enjoyed this story, I am confident that you'll love the next one appearing on the screen now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and please give this video a like. I'll see you in the next one.